I think that ERGs, employee resource groups, employee community groups, however you're naming it in your organization, is vital to the employee experience. I think just even thinking outside of DE&I and what those groups usually offer for anyone that's within the organization is critical.
So, obviously, in the months after George Floyd's murder, employee resource groups started to emerge as a focal pillar in dealing with equity issues in corporate America and obviously in agency world. How do ERGs serve as a means to pushing DE&I progress? How impactful are they really in the grand scheme of equity and career progress among Black employees and other people of color?
People need to find communities where they can identify with. And then it's such a great way to also get a focus and a handle on what is that community talking about and what are their needs that you should consider in order to build equity in the workplace. They're the ones that are supporting and thinking about, how they show up in the business, what kind of projects they can get involved in. I think the fine line though with that is we can't over-index on that.
One thing that comes up a lot is some of the challenges of trying to run an ERG effectively. And so, what are some of the challenges that ERGs face that executives should be aware of, and how can companies support these groups consistently to ensure that they're successful within the culture of an organization?
Sponsorship. I think there's a great opportunity for the folks outside of the ERG and for our culture to say, hey, having an ERG truly gives us an opportunity to then, in a space where those members of the ERG might be comfortable, engaging them, interacting with them. And then you have to present that ERG with meaningful opportunities where they can actually be seen, their work can be celebrated, and then you can assign a partner, a co-conspirator, a collaborator with them to help them meet and reach their goals.
What are some tangible things that organizations can do to better support ERGs and ensure that the burden of DE&I doesn't fall entirely on them?
It shouldn't fall on them at all, right? Because that's not what they're there for. They're there to support in reaching those commitments. They're there to help drive accountability. They're there to give ideas, but do they own it? Absolutely not. When we think about ownership, the ownership falls within the entire organization, right? So I think every single individual, but as an individual, not as a collective community, is responsible for the progress of DNI. The biggest thing is visibility, right? You have to cheer them on and you have to give them the visibility to show people what they're doing. Where are you incorporating them in your community town hall? Like whatever type of large company meeting you're having. How is the CEO being involved in maybe going to a meeting that they're hosting? Also thinking about if they're supporting, me being in advertising, if they're supporting on client work, can they join in the client meeting, in the pitch, so that you show them that, here is the contributions that we have outside of the team. And the team is bigger than just those individuals, but it includes our employee resources as well.
Goals, measurable goals. And what I mean by measurable goals, the organization has to have measurable goals. Those have to be clear before you're engaging the actual ERG. And then the ERG has to be at the foundation, has to be supported with the resources to allow them to flourish. I don't think that the ERG has to be tied to the goals of the organization, but the organization has to be really clear as to how their goals are actually possibly being either met or positively impacted by the ERG's presence. It is not the ERG's responsibility to make sure an organization's DE&I goals are met.
What are some other measures that should be taken in addition to creating ERGs that can help move the needle forward in terms of representation and equity in the workplace?
Tying the ERGs to executive sponsors. And the reason why you do that is because, again, they have visibility and they're actually at the table, right? So they don't necessarily have to physically be at the table, but you as their executive sponsor can be that voice that is carrying forth their ideas. And then when you do that, it makes them feel like such an integral part of the business, right? That the time that they're volunteering and that they're offering, it is being invested into something. So I think that that's super, super critical.
I would much rather people get extremely real about what they're not doing versus the platitude of what they talk about doing. I think we're all working really hard for a LinkedIn soundbite, but we're not talking about what would actually impact someone's career. I don't know if there's really a lot of times an active goal to get people who are in these ERGs actually elevated within an organization. And I think one of the issues I have is that people almost feel like by actually having the ERG, you've done the work. Show me where presence or space within the ERG then matches an actual track of elevation within the organization.